Bagas's world felt shattered. The lover he cherished deeply had left him just like that, and the friend he trusted betrayed him. Yet, in the midst of his dark world, there was a glimmer of light, not from anyone else, but from the legacy of kindness his father had left behind during his lifetime. Because sometimes, a good name and the prayers that continue to flow from parents are the greatest inheritance for their children. Let us follow the journey of Bagas, a story filled with sorrow, tears, and heartache. Yet one that eventually blossoms into goodness and a happiness he never could have imagined. In a hot and noisy corner of the city, a 27-year-old young man lived a simple life in his rented room. Its walls were thin, and sounds from the next room could be heard clearly. That place stood as both proof and witness to his loyalty and the struggles of his life. Every day, Bagas went from one house to another, working as a repairman, fixing air conditioners, refrigerators, and other electronic appliances with his own hands. As long as the work was honest and lawful, he would do it wholeheartedly. His mother and younger sibling in the village were the reasons he never grew tired or gave up amidst the heat and noise of the city. And Risma, his beloved, gave Bagas even more strength to work hard as he looked forward to the future that lay before him. For 3 years, Bagas had been in a relationship with his beloved, Risma. She was a simple woman who never asked for much. Bagas loved her not only for her looks, but for her humble attitude and personality. In his free time, he would pick her up from work, dream to marry Risma when the weather turned cloudy, and build a modest home together with his mother. Catch a glimpse of her smile. He believed that good intentions, when kept pure, would always be granted a way and help from the Almighty God. One day, Bagas was surprised by the arrival of Romi, his old school friend. He was neatly dressed, his hair slicked back, and the scent of expensive perfume could be noticed from afar. Bagas was deeply surprised, yet happy. Laughter and a sense of longing flowed naturally between them. Romi admitted that he was looking for business opportunities in the city. He asked for permission to stay for a while. Without the slightest suspicion, Bagas welcomed Romi to live with him. Little did Bagas know that his kindness would mark the beginning of a dark chapter in his life. Bagas had no idea that Romi was moving from one place to another to cover his tracks from the police. Romi deceived wealthy women under the guise of investment schemes. Bagas was far too sincere and naive to realize it. He simply continued with his routine, going to work in the morning and returning home in the evening. Sometimes Romi would go out at night, claiming he was meeting a business partner. Bagas often bought him food, believing his friend might be in some kind of trouble. That evening, a gentle breeze blew as Bagas picked up Risma from her workplace. After having a meal at a simple food stall, Bagas brought Risma to his rented room to introduce her to Romi. Proudly, Bagas introduced his girlfriend to Romi, his old friend. Romi extended his hand with a smile, but his gaze lingered on Risma in a way that felt strange, making Bagas's chest tighten, as if sensing something he couldn't understand. Risma didn't say much, and Bagas tried his best not to think the worst. One day, an incident stirred suspicion in Bagas's heart. While Romi was taking a shower, he left his phone on the bed. Suddenly, the screen lit up, showing a notification from Risma. Bagas's chest tightened, his fingers trembled. He was about to reach for the following night, but Romi finished his shower borrowing Bagas's and grabbed it first, always with the excuse of meeting his business partners. His phone never left his hand, and he often smiled to himself. Bagas began to feel like a stranger in his own place. What hurt even more was that Risma became increasingly difficult to reach messages when unanswered, and every invitation to meet was refused. Bagas knew something had started to change, but he still had no solid proof. Until one day, fate opened his eyes. That morning, Bagas left for work, but a few hours later, he remembered he had forgotten his spare key to the rented room. He quickly returned, and in front of his door, he saw Risma's shoes. His heart pounded wildly as he held his breath, stepped closer in silence, and peeked through the narrow gap in the ventilation. The world seemed to stop turning as he saw Romi and Risma in each other's arms, consumed by passion and desire. Bagas didn't enter, didn't shout. He simply turned around in silence and walked away, carrying a wound too deep to bear. He didn't return home from that afternoon until late into the night. Romi and Risma called him again and again, but Bagas let the phone ring, refusing to answer. Bagas's heart was wounded, deeper than any pain he had ever felt. The next morning, he still went to work despite his turmoil. Until finally, he crashed into a luxury car parked on the side of the road, shattering its side mirror. A beautiful woman stepped out, her presence firm and commanding. "Do you know how much my car's mirror costs?" the woman snapped. Bagas apologized repeatedly, but the woman didn't care. She seized his motorcycle papers and ID card. "I'll report you to the police, but if you can cover my loss within 5 days. "I won't make this a problem," she said before leaving, handing Bagas her business card. He stood frozen, caught between confusion and fear. It wasn't the police he feared, but the thought of his mother in the village hearing about it and carrying an even heavier burden in her heart. That afternoon, Bagas returned to his rented room. It was quiet. Romi had already left. He packed up his belongings and clothes. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. It was a call from his younger sibling. "Mother is sick. Bagas. The doctor said she needs immediate treatment." Bagas realized this was not the time to wallow in his misfortune. He rushed to the bank, sending 2/3 of his savings for his mother's care, and withdrew the rest in cash. That morning, the sky was overcast, just like Bagas's heart that had yet to heal. With hesitation, he went to the address written on the business card. A tall, luxurious building stood before him. The air-conditioned room inside felt strange and cold to Bagas, who was used to working in sweat every day. A young receptionist greeted him formally. "Do you have an appointment with Mrs. Tiara?" she asked. "Hey." Bagas nodded quietly. "I'm Bagas, the one who hit your car yesterday," he said after speaking with Tiara. The receptionist then allowed Bagas to go up to the 5th floor of the director's office. Bagas didn't know whether he should be afraid or grateful to meet the woman who, as it turned out, was a director. In the luxurious office, Bagas came face to face with the same woman who had taken his ID card and motorcycle papers the day before. Her face was cold, almost expressionless. She was nearly the same age as Bagas, yet her appearance radiated an aura of maturity far beyond his "Where's the money?" she asked bluntly with trembling hands. Bagas handed over an envelope. "This is all my savings, ma'am." A finance staff member quickly counted the money. "This is still far from enough," Tiara said. "It's not just my car's mirror that was damaged, there are sensors and body paint as well. The total is tens of millions and you only have a quarter of it," Tiara said. Bagas lowered his head. "Please give me time, I will pay it in installments. I take full responsibility. Just don't report me to the police. If I'm arrested, my mother and younger sibling in the village will suffer. I'm the one supporting them and my mother is sick right now." Tiara stared at him for a long time. "In that case, give me some collateral. I don't have anything left, ma'am. Even if I sold everything I own, it still wouldn't be enough to cover the shortfall. Please, give me a chance. I'll pay it off in installments." Tiara leaned back in her chair. Her gaze was sharp, yet there was a hidden sense of pity behind her cold eyes. "Coincidentally, I'm in need of a cleaning staff. How about you work here for 5 months without a salary? Even then, I'll take your money as the first installment. How does that sound?" The room fell silent. Bagas swallowed hard. He felt as if he had been slapped repeatedly, yet he realized this was better than being detained. "All right, ma'am. I accept your offer." Tiara immediately stood up and shook Bagas' hand. "Okay, welcome aboard. Start work tomorrow at 7 a.m. Bagas walked out of the room, his body intact but his spirit shattered. His lover and best friend had betrayed him, his savings were completely gone, and his mother back in the village was sick and needed money. Now he had to sweep, mop, and clean the luxurious office where men in suits worked all without a salary. In his heart, Bagas told himself, "This isn't over yet. I still have God, the one I turn to in prayer and for help. As long as I do not act unjustly, God will surely provide a way." Quietly. Tiara admired Bagas' sincerity and honesty, a simple man who had just shown a true sense of responsibility. Days passed and Romi and Risma lived in restlessness, without peace. Ever since Bagas disappeared without a trace, both were haunted by an endless sense of guilt. One after another they tried to reach out to Bagas to apologize, but there was never any response, even though his phone remained active. Amid their togetherness, laughter no longer carried joy, and every step they took was overshadowed by a single name: Bagas. That afternoon, the city sky grew dark and a light drizzle began to fall as they sat together at a roadside coffee shop. Romi was talking about his new business plans, while Risma listened with a vacant stare. Before Romi could finish speaking, several police officers approached them. "Romi Sanjaya, you are under arrest for fraud under the guise of investment schemes." Romi was stunned, his face turning pale. "Risma, please find Bagas and convey my apology." Risma remained silent, tears streaming down her face. Romi was handcuffed and taken away as the relentless drizzle continued. It was only then that Risma realized this was instant retribution from God, a consequence of Bagas' anguished prayers. Her own foolishness had brought disaster into her life. One afternoon, Risma went out searching for Bagas, asking his fellow repairmen about his whereabouts. Eventually, a clue about his office surfaced from someone's information. As dusk approached, heavy rain poured down. In the back parking lot of the office, Bagas sat alone, drenched and shivering from the cold. The sound of footsteps echoed, appearing with a worried face and an umbrella in hand. It was Risma. Bagas remained silent, eyes closed, tears streaming down his cheeks, mingling with the rain. Risma stepped closer, kneeling before him. "Forgive me, Bagas. I was foolish. I was wrong. Please, give me one more chance." Bagas looked at her with empty eyes. "How many years have we been together?" 3 years, Bagas. All that time, I never laid a hand on you because I respected and honored a woman like you." Tears flowed from Bagas's eyes, not out of weakness, but from a wound too deep to bear, and yet you gave everything to a man you'd only known for 3 days. "What hurts even more is that he was my close friend," Bagas said bitterly after that. "I was a mess. I crashed my car, and now I have to work here without pay just to cover the damages. You two destroyed everything in the blink of an eye." Risma wept in deep regret. Bagas looked at her sharply, then turned away, walking off without ever looking back. Through her office window, she never expected that the simple man carried such a deep wound within him. Without noticing, tears fell uncontrollably from Tiara's eyes for the first time. She admired a man not for his wealth, glory, or power, but for his sincerity, patience, and loyalty. Bagas was a man who had lost everything, yet he chose not to run from reality. That day seemed ordinary until late afternoon, when a staff member named Rika appeared confused and panicked at her desk. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled as she typed, opening folder after folder. She quickly got up and rushed to Tiara's office. "Ma'am, the file for tomorrow's meeting presentation suddenly disappeared." "I'm so sorry," she said nervously. Tiara immediately stood up. "Why are you only telling me this now? Tomorrow, that file has to be presented to an important client." Rika broke into tears. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I just found out now. I've searched through all the folders, even the recycle bin, but it's not there." Tiara looked at her with a panicked expression. "If it's not found, you know the consequences." Glanced at Rika with pity. Bagas, who was cleaning the hallway, only observed from a distance. After the office grew quiet, Bagas slowly approached Rika. Rika, I'm sorry, is the file really gone? Yes, Bagas, I swear I saved it in the main folder. Bagas lowered his gaze to the screen. May I try to help? Sometimes lost files can still be recovered, as long as they haven't been overwritten. Rika looked at him for a moment. There was no choice but to surrender. Tiara, who was about to enter the room, paused for a moment as she saw the interaction. She turned and looked at Bagas, who had begun sitting in front of Rika's laptop with a serious expression. There was no intention of acting like a know-it-all or making small talk. He was simply helping. The office had grown quiet, leaving only the two of them and the security guard outside. Rika looked uneasy in her chair, occasionally glancing at the screen displaying the recovered files. Bagas tried to stay calm and focused, occasionally reassuring Rika, "It takes time, Rika. Please be patient, I'm sure it can still be recovered." Rika nodded in resignation. At 8 p.m., Rika's phone rang. "Have you found the file, Rika?" Tiara's voice came from the other end. "Not yet, ma'am. It's still in process. But it seems like it will take a while. Have you eaten yet?" Tiara asked more gently. "Not yet, ma'am." A little while later, Tiara arrived carrying some food. "Go ahead and eat first. Waiting on an empty stomach isn't good either." The two of them ate in silence, with Bagas occasionally throwing in light jokes without crossing any boundaries. Tiara sat not far away, sometimes joining in with a smile, though a little awkward and shy. "Bagas, how do you know about computers?" Rika asked. "I'm a technician for just about anything, Rika. Even lifting cabinets is fine as long as they're not too heavy." The three of them laughed together. Something changed in Tiara's expression. Her gaze toward Bagas grew softer, deeper, and full of feeling. At exactly 10 p.m., the recovery bar came to a stop, and folders began to reappear. "Praise be to God," said Bagas with a smile. Rika leaned closer, her eyes widening, tears streaming down in joy. She couldn't stop thanking Bagas over and over. The lost files had been fully restored. Bagas smiled elderly. As he excused himself, Tiara hesitantly stepped closer. "Thank you, Bagas. Without your help, I don't know what would have happened to my meeting tomorrow." Bagas nodded politely, leaving with a quiet sense of satisfaction. Tiara watched his back as he faded into the drizzling night. A feeling lingered there, one that had silently grown without Tiara ever realizing it. Day by day, the path of solitude slowly began to change. Bagas kept working without any salary. He arrived every morning earlier than all the employees and staff, during breaks. Bagas sometimes only drank plain water when his money started to run out, but somehow, there were always people who called him to repair air conditioners, refrigerators, computers, and so on, just enough for him to survive and send a little to his mother, even if it wasn't much. He began to make peace with his circumstances, learning to let go of his past. Even though it wasn't easy, Bagas learned to accept things as they were, to forgive, even if the wounds could not heal overnight. Rika often brought food for Bagas as her way of showing gratitude. She became the only person close to him. They ate together, had coffee side by side. Their jokes might have been simple, their laughter not excessive, but there was a genuine sincerity in it. Tiara watched them from a distance, observing them quietly. Sometimes, she wanted to step forward, join in, and laugh together, but her mind refused to recognize that she was the head of a prestigious company, a successful woman surrounded by the elite, and she also had a boyfriend who picked her up every day in his luxury car. She kept her distance, but feelings couldn't always be kept at bay. Several times, Tiara deliberately called Bagas to fix things that anyone else could have done, like plugging in a cable and such. She simply wanted Bagas to be the one to come and repair it. Yet, Tiara still often had lunch and coffee with her boyfriend. Bagas only glanced at them briefly, then went back to work, with no change visible on his face. One day, while Bagas was working as usual, Tiara walked over to him. "Bagas," she called softly. "Yes, ma'am. What is it?" Bagas replied politely with respect. Are you still comfortable working here? Very comfortable, ma'am. Very much so. In that case, you may continue working here after 5 months without pay, this time with a full salary. Bagas, I'll think about it, ma'am. Thank you for your trust. How many months have you been working here, Bagas? 4 months, ma'am. Tiara nodded slowly and walked away, leaving Bagas at work, though her heart remained there. That afternoon, as Bagas was about to leave, Risma was already waiting in the parking lot. She sat on Bagas's motorcycle, her eyes swollen and face streaked with tears. What are you doing here? Bagas asked. Risma stood up and held her stomach. I'm pregnant, Bagas. Romi is in prison. I'm confused. I don't know where to go. Bagas looked at her blankly. The wound that had almost healed seemed to tear open again. I have nothing more to do with you, Risma, but Romi is your friend. Bagas, that's exactly what hurts the most. Risma cried harder, trying to reach for Bagas's hand. Suddenly, Tiara appeared from behind and stood between them, staring at Risma sharply, yet calmly. Tenderly, she held Bagas's hand and said, I'm sorry, don't bother Bagas. He's my fiancé. We'll be married soon, so please stay away from him. Who are you? Don't interfere in our affairs. Risma exclaimed, full of emotion. I am the one who stays by his side when he is hurting. Don't see him again. I won't let him continue to be wounded by his past. Risma slowly stepped back, tears streaming down her face, and walked away, leaving the two of them alone. Bagas gently and politely released Tiara's hand. Thank you, ma'am, for defending me and freeing me from that woman. Tiara gazed at him deeply, causing Bagas to lower his head in silence. Bagas, a person as sincere and good as you doesn't deserve to be hurt for so long. It's time for you to be saved from the wounds you've carried alone. Bagas fell silent, his eyes misty. Thank you, ma'am, for your care. Tiara nodded and smiled. Go home and rest. You will find something better to replace your past. Bagas walked away, glancing back for a moment. Their eyes met, no words were spoken, only hearts communicating. A feeling began to grow, warm and comforting. On the way home, Bagas smiled to himself as he rode his motorcycle. The night wind felt cold against his face, but his heart felt warm, different somehow. Tiara's single quote's touch had been so gentle and warm. Bagas quickly came back to reality, shaking off the dream that had made him momentarily lost in it. He knew his place, aware of who he was and who Tiara was far too high for him to reach. That night, Bagas stared at the ceiling of his room. In silence, he prayed to God, Dear Lord, please don't add more pain to my heart by making me love someone too difficult for me to have it. One evening, the sky was overcast and the office activity began to slow down as usual. Bagas was mopping the floor, making sure everything was clean after all the employees had left. Tiara hurriedly walked while talking on her phone, unaware that the floor was still slippery. Be careful, ma'am, it's slippery, Bagas shouted, but it was too late. Tiara slipped, and with a reflex, Bagas jumped and caught her before she could hit the floor. Tiara was in Bagas's arms, their breaths almost mingling, their gazes locked. A subtle vibration shook the atmosphere between them. Bagas froze in confusion, his heart pounding. Tiara felt the same. Her cheeks flushed, fixated on the man holding her. Bagas regained consciousness. Sorry, ma'am, he said, gently guiding Tiara to her feet. Tiara just nodded softly. It's okay, comma. She then went into her room, her steps no longer as firm as before. Behind the door, she leaned against it, trying to calm herself. That gaze, that embrace, why did it feel so different? Her heart was still racing. Meanwhile, Bagas stood stiffly, staring at the floor he hadn't finished mopping. His thoughts drifted far, replaying every second Tiara had been in his embrace. Something was beginning to grow slowly but surely. He hesitated and quickly pushed it away. That night, in his small room, Bagas was folding his clothes when suddenly his phone rang. The caller ID showed the name Bima. his service friend Bagas. Please help me. There's an AC that needs servicing at one of my regular clients' places. I have a fever, Bagas. I've already sent you the address. He knew that tomorrow was Sunday, a day he could rest and unwind. But Bhima was sick, and he also needed the money for his mother. So he immediately agreed, even though exhaustion weighed heavily on him. The next morning, Bagas arrived in an upscale neighborhood he had never visited before. The houses were luxurious and grand, built in a modern style. A housemaid greeted him warmly. "You must be Bagas, right?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied politely. "Please go upstairs to fix the AC." Bagas immediately began cleaning the filter and organizing the cables. Before long, Bagas had finished the repair. He was about to take his leave when Mrs. Darmi, the housemaid, stopped him, carrying a cup of hot coffee. "Have some coffee first, Bagas. Out on the back terrace. The air is so fresh," she said. Bagas felt awkward refusing. He sat on a wooden chair, savoring the aroma of the coffee and the cool morning air. A moment later, a middle-aged man came out and greeted him. "What's your name?" "Bagas, sir. I'm Hendra," the man replied, his eyes fixed intently on Bagas. As if unraveling pieces of his past, the two of them chatted casually about various things. When Bagas was about to leave, the man accompanied him through the living room. As they passed a wide wall, Bagas stopped in his tracks. An old photograph, two young men standing before a stretch of green rice fields. "Sir, I have a photo like this at home. The one on the right, that's my father, Bagas Darmohan." Mr. Hendra's eyes widened. His hands trembling, "Bagas Darmohan," his voice faltered. He immediately pulled Bagas into a tight embrace, as if he never wanted to let him go. "Where does your father live now, Bagas?" "My father passed away when I was still a child, and my younger sibling was just a baby. It was a work accident while he was renovating a mosque." Mr. Hendra fell silent, tears streaming uncontrollably. "Bagas Darmohan was my childhood friend. He was my best friend. When I fell, he was the one who helped me up. He only said, 'Consider this a debt, but one you never need to pay it back with your success in the future.' After that, I didn't know where he went, and I never saw him again until now." Mr. Hendra fell silent for a long time, his breath uneven as if holding back his emotions. "Bagas, don't leave just yet. Come, let's eat together, as my gratitude for being able to meet the son of my dearest friend." At the dining table, Bagas told the story of his mother who refused to remarry, about his younger sibling who was still in school and now helped take care of their orphaned mother, and about Bagas's work being an office boy during the day and a repairman on call at night. Mr. Hundra looked at him with eyes full of surprise and a deep sense of guilt. He felt guilty for letting the child of his loyal friend bear such a heavy burden in life. "Where do you live, Bagas?" he asked softly. "I live in a boarding house behind the market, sir." "Stay here, Bagas." "This house is too big and quiet," said Mr. Hendra. Bagas gave a small smile. "Thank you, sir, but I'll stay at my boarding house. I don't want to trouble you." Before leaving, Mr. Hendra handed Bagas a large stack of money. However, Bagas firmly refused to accept it, taking only the amount that covered the service fee. "Bagas," said Mr. Hendra, "I know your soul is just like your father's. You don't want to trouble others, nor take advantage of someone's kindness and trust for your own gain. But," Mr. Hendra continued, "for the sake of our friendship, and to repay your father's kindness, even though he never asked for anything in return, please take this money for your mother and younger sibling in the village. I would feel deeply guilty if I let the family of the man who once helped me now suffer in hardship." Bagas was moved and could no longer refuse after hearing Mr. Hendra's heartfelt words. Mr. Hendra asked for Bagas's phone number. He didn't want to lose him the way he once lost his father. That day was not just a meeting. It was a piece of the past finding its way back. Bagas went home with mixed emotions, touched and warm. as if he had found a missing piece of his life. Dusk crept in slowly as Tiara opened the door to her house. She had just returned from the shopping mall with Dennis, her boyfriend. Her face looked tired. Lately, their relationship had felt empty instead of happiness. She often found herself daydreaming, and the image of Bagas frequently appeared uninvited. She didn't know when it began, but somehow that simple man had started to fill the hidden corners of her heart. Tiara's steps halted when she saw her father sitting alone in the living room, gazing at a photo of his late wife. He also stared at an old picture of himself with a man he once considered his true and irreplaceable friend. Tiara walked closer and gently sat beside her father, leaning against him affectionately. Her father stayed silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "Tiara, maybe I don't have much time left. The longing for them feels heavy in my chest." Tiara said nothing. She knew that behind her father's firmness lay a deep and quiet loneliness. "Tiara," he continued, "earlier today the son of my old friend came here. He came to fix the air conditioner. I didn't realize who he was at first. Only after seeing the photo of me and his father on the wall did I realize. He is the son of my dear friend, Bagas Darmowan." Tiara fell silent, listening to her father's story with deep empathy. She didn't realize that the man her father was talking about was Bagas, the same man who swept and mopped the floors at her office every day, and who had quietly begun to occupy and wander through the chambers of her heart. Days went by, and Bagas continued to work diligently and responsibly as always. He seemed invisible to everyone. Yet Tiara often watched him quietly from afar. Something inside her felt different since that unexpected meeting with Bagas, but she was hesitant, embarrassed, and unwilling to admit it. And deep down, Tiara was afraid of one thing: losing him. Bagas had only a few days left on his contract. It was almost over. He would probably return to working as a repairman on call. Tiara wanted to keep him, but she hesitated, unsure if Bagas would want to stay. One night, Tiara sat lost in thought in her room. She had just broken up with Dennis, her boyfriend. According to him, Tiara had become distant, her mind seeming to be somewhere else entirely. In truth, Tiara herself felt uneasy around Dennis. Mr. Hendra called her, breaking her daydream. Tiara quickly went downstairs and sat beside her father. "How's your relationship with Dennis, Tiara?" he asked. Tiara fell silent for a moment before replying softly. "We've broken up, father." Mr. Hendra nodded gently. He had already suspected it. His gaze showed no surprise. It was clear Dennis had never been sincere. All he ever talked about were the company, his position, and his luxury car. Tiara never expected that her father had secretly been watching her relationship with Dennis. "I want to introduce you to the son of my late best friend, Mr. Bagas Darmowan," her father said calmly. "I wish to restore the bond between our families. This friendship is too precious to be ignored. Without Mr. Hendra's help, we wouldn't be where we are today," he continued. Tiara was stunned, her eyes widened. "The man who serviced our air conditioner yesterday, father?" Mr. Hendra nodded slowly. "No, father, I can't," Tiara replied anxiously. "I don't want to be matched with a stranger." Yet deep down, Bagas had never truly felt like a stranger. He had been in her thoughts more and more lately. "This might be my last request, Tiara," her father said softly. "Would you at least get to know him first? Don't look at his social status, look at his heart and sincerity. If you find that you're not compatible with him, I won't force you to marry him. Just think of him as your own brother. Help him find a suitable job at your office, one that matches his abilities. I would feel guilty and regretful if I allowed my best friend's family to live in hardship." Tiara fell silent. Her heart was torn between confusion and anger. Without another word, she stood up and went straight to her room. Since then, Baghindra often contacted Bagas. The voice that used to sound authoritative now sounded warm, as if missing a family member who had been far away for a long time. "Bagas, are you married?" he asked one day over the phone. Not yet, sir. I tried before, but it didn't work out. Now I'm focusing on taking care of my younger sibling and my mother, sir. You are truly a dutiful son. Your father must be proud of you. Bagas smiled softly. Bagas did not expect that life would take him this far, and now his path seems to lead in a new direction, one whose end he cannot yet foresee. On the other hand, Tiara began to form questions in her heart about who exactly the man her father referred to as the son of his late close friend really was, and who was now quietly filling the deepest space in her heart. One morning, Tiara arrived at the office as usual, but something was different. Her face was gloomy, her eyes empty, and her sweet smile seemed to have been left somewhere behind. She sat for a long time in silence at her desk, while piles of documents stacked up, waiting for her attention. The matchmaking her father had planned kept swirling in her mind. Tiara knew how deep her father's respect for his late friend was, yet she wasn't ready to be introduced to a stranger she had never met before. Or perhaps she was afraid, because secretly her heart had already chosen someone else. Someone she had never really considered all this time. With a deep breath, she pressed the intercom button. Bagas, please come to my office. For not long after, there was a gentle knock on the door. Bagas entered calmly and politely. Is there anything I can help you with, ma'am? Tiara lifted her face for a moment, gazing at Bagas for a few seconds, as if trying to untangle the feelings she had been holding back all this time. Bagas, your contract is ending soon, isn't it? Tiara asked calmly. Yes, ma'am, in 15 days, Bagas replied with a polite nod. If I may ask, what are your plans after that? I plan to continue working as a freelance repairman, ma'am. Bagas, Tiara responded softly. Actually, I'd like you to stay and keep working here with a proper salary, of course. You're diligent, sincere, and honest. Bagas lowered his head, deeply moved. Thank you, ma'am, but I'd feel bad for my customers. Tiara took a deep breath. Then, with effort, she forced the heavy words to leave her lips. I've broken up with Dennis, and now my father wants to arrange a marriage for me with someone I've never seen and don't even know. I'm not sure I can go through with it. Bagas fell silent, unsure of what to say. After a brief silence, Bagas spoke softly. Pray and ask for guidance from the Almighty, ma'am. Sometimes, what we don't understand, God has already prepared the answer for it. The end of our prayers. Tiara gazed intently at Bagas. There was calmness, sincerity, and strength in his eyes that made her heart tremble. Tiara wanted to say something, but her lips felt frozen. She wasn't yet brave enough to admit that her heart had fallen for the man now. Standing before her, then Bagas excused himself to return to his work. Tiara could only watch his back as he walked away, even though deep down she wished she could talk to him a little longer. Tiara sat in silence, lost in her restless thoughts. She didn't want an arranged marriage. She already had her own answer. She wasn't brave enough to say it yet. That afternoon, Bagas received a phone call from Mr. Hendra, his late father's loyal friend. His voice was warm and friendly. Bagas, can you come to my house tomorrow evening? We'll have dinner together, and there's something important I want to tell you, said Mr. Hendra. Yes, sir. I'll come to your house tomorrow evening, Bagas replied without hesitation. Bagas respected Mr. Hendra deeply. In his heart, he felt a closeness to him, almost like to his own father. That night, Tiara sat with her father in the living room. The lights were dim, and the soft ticking of the wall clock filled the quiet room. Tiara, said Mr. Hendra, tomorrow evening, don't go anywhere. The son of my late friend will be coming to our house. I'm not forcing you to marry him, but try to meet and get to know him first. Who knows, maybe there will be a connection between you two. Tiara wanted to scream and refuse, but when she saw the sincerity in her father's eyes, she couldn't bring herself to disappoint him. All right, Dad. I'll stay home tomorrow evening, she said softly, ... in her heart. Tiara wasn't ready. She still couldn't accept it, but out of love for her father, She decided to try, even though her soul was struggling inside. Tiara had no idea who the man coming tomorrow night would be. That night, the sky was clear without a single cloud. The moon hung gracefully, casting its soft light over the yard of the grand house where Bagas stepped in. He wasn't there to fix the air conditioner this time, but as an invited guest of Mr. Hendra. Wearing neat yet simple clothes, Bagas pressed the doorbell with trembling hands. Mrs. Darmy, the housemaid, slowly opened the door and politely invited Bagas inside. Bagas waited calmly in the living room for Mr. Hendra. Soft footsteps descended the stairs. Tiara appeared, dressed in a simple yet graceful gown. Her gaze froze the moment she saw the man standing before her. Bagas, you... Tiara's voice trembled in disbelief. Bagas quickly turned his head, his eyes widening. Tiara! For a moment, time seemed to stand still. They stared at each other in shock, yet the unspoken emotion between them was impossible to hide. Mr. Hendra came out a few moments later. He looked at Tiara and Bagas with a hint of confusion. You two already know each other? He asked, half in disbelief. Tiara lowered her head shyly and gave a small nod. Mr. Hendra let out a long sigh. His gaze was sharp, yet his smile carried a deep, knowing meaning. So, what do you think, Tiara? Mr. Hendra teased his daughter. Dad, Bagas is one of my coworkers at the office. He works as an office boy. He's hardworking, sincere, honest, and very responsible. If the man you meant is him, the son of your late friend, then I'll gladly accept him, Tiara said playfully. In fact, I'd fight for him with all my heart and soul. Bagas was willing to work in my office for 5 months without pay, Dad, as a form of responsibility for a mistake he made. Bagas nodded. I accidentally hit Miss Tiara's car and couldn't afford to pay for the damage. So, I agreed to work for 5 months without salary to repay my debt until it was fully settled, Mr. Hendra. Looked at Bagas with a mix of admiration and emotion. Why didn't you tell me about this, Bagas? He asked softly. I didn't want to trouble you, sir. Besides, it was my fault. And I have to take responsibility for it. The room fell silent, a silence that was deep and full of meaning. Mr. Hendra looked at Tiara and Bagas in turn and said softly, If you both don't mind, I would like to see you together, building a family and working side by side to continue my company. Tiara lowered her head and smiled shyly. She couldn't bring herself to look at Bagas sitting across from her. There was a brief silence until Bagas finally spoke. I'll leave the decision to you, sir. But would Tiara be willing and not embarrassed to have someone as simple as me by her side? What about you, Tiara? Mr. Hendra asked his daughter. I'll follow whatever you decide, Dad. But I don't want Bagas to call me Miss Tiara. Anymore, just call me Tiara, she said with a shy smile. The three of them smiled warmly together. That night, the silence became a witness, no longer about mistakes, but about the courage to love with honesty. Beneath the same moonlight, their simple love finally found its way. Not long after, they were married in a simple yet deeply moving and joyful ceremony. Bagas's mother and younger sister were present. Sitting in the front row with tears streaming down their faces, his mother couldn't stop wiping away her tears of happiness. Her son, whom she had raised with such simplicity, was now sitting on the wedding stage beside a noble woman, the daughter of her late husband's dearest friend. On the other side, Tiara often glanced toward her father, who sat not far from her with tears of joy in his eyes. Mr. Hendra appeared calm, yet the look in his eyes was filled with deep gratitude. He was truly happy through his daughter. The long-lost bond of brotherhood with his dearest friend had finally been restored. One afternoon, as they sat on the front porch, filled with laughter and joy, Bagas said, Tiara, do you still keep my motorcycle papers? Tiara quickly turned to him, smiling mischievously as she wrapped her arms tightly around him. Of course I still keep them, and I'll never give them back. They're my guarantee that you'll stay with me for the rest of our lives." Bagas laughed and hugged her in return. They joked and laughed together in the gentle breeze of the evening, light-hearted and full of love, beneath the same sky that once brought them together by chance. They now walked side by side, with hearts that strengthened each other and a love no longer hidden. The moral message we can take is that any cruelty, insult, or hurtful treatment we receive from others, if we choose not to retaliate, will surely be repaid by God through His destiny and power for women. Remember this: the one who is skilled at winning your heart may also have been just as skilled at winning the hearts of other women before you. Thank you, and see you again.